In a moss of many layers, time settles darkly, a measure of healing. Slowly, slowly, this wide mire breathing. How does it feel? Sky and earth shifting.
I've arrived at Bolton Fell at this stage of its journey, so it's had various iterations of itself in the past as a horticultural peat factory, and before that for fuel, and as well as all the nature that lives here. And this is a point in its story now where it becomes a place for nature and people again. In time, I would hope that people appreciate what is here and how rare it is.
Way back, well, it was 1959 when I started here, right from the school. Out onto the bog here, cutting peat by hand with these tools.
Joe wasn't the only member of the family that worked here, so...
My dad worked here as well. Huh? No, it was a living for a lot of people.
I never did anything but cut peat because I was a part-timer. I'm a farmer, I've always been a farmer. I've worked a 7-day week for over 70 years.
Oh, it was hard work, aye. It was hard work. You didn't get a big pay for it, no.
You come back for the £4 each.
Aye, go man. And that's when the big machinery was, they started this surface milling, and the peat, it was just peat, and for horticulture and that. I haven't been back since I left in, I was 2004, 5 maybe, I'm not sure just the exact date, but no, it's a massive change, is what I see on here.
Well preserved, I would say. I wouldn't recognise it as the same place, really, but it was all crisscrossed with regular ditches and that, and even though I say what we cut off the top was put back and still, it didn't have trees in it, Oh, it's lovely. Aye, good. And I hear the birds, so there's. It's obviously been found by the wildlife.
Bolton Fell Moss is a milled peatland. It used to be, 12 metres deep, and 10 metres of it has been extracted. 4 or 5 years ago it was a barren, some people call wasteland. Over the past 4 or 5 years it's been being restored to see something that's quite green and almost quite natural looking, starting to come back to life. The value of that site in terms of how much carbon it can start sequestering and storing again is immense, and would make a significant difference to the UK's emissions inventory if it was to be included. Each of the milled areas have been treated with different techniques. As contractors, as academics, we've learnt so much from the site and realised that every site is so unique and it deserves to be used for research purposes and the education, specifically the education of young people.
Part of the understanding what it is that you've come to visit is getting in amongst the peat bog, really. And one little boy, just every time he looked at him, he was up to his armpit in peat again, bringing out another handful, and just constantly asking, what is it? But what is this? It wasn't until we used a little hand lens to look at the peat really, really closely, and then look at some bog moss really, really closely. And he went quiet for a minute, and then he just said, "It's the same." And it was a little light bulb moment of what we'd spent the morning bouncing on and walking on and pushing our hands into was pickled bog moss. So yeah, just things like that are just really lovely ways of helping people perhaps understand, wow, yeah, this is quite a different place actually.
So what we've been doing today is at a small scale undertaking a little bit of peatland restoration. The children have done today, they've dug 3 little cell bunds on an area of degraded peatland, and over the next year or 2, if the sphagnum moss that they've planted and transplanted there grows up, that will start trapping carbon, and that will start doing things that a peat bog should be doing, but that Bolton Fell Moss hasn't done for over 100 years. People always talk about climate change saying, well, what's the point? What can I do? And you say, well, okay, it's little action. You've done a little action that a few of you have dug a cell bund. That's going to make 0.5 kilogram of carbon maybe in the next year if we're lucky. That would be good. We've got another group of kids coming tomorrow, the events that Natural England will be running when they open up Bolton Fell Moss, to start saying, this is actually a massive resource. It's something that we should be celebrating. And within a context of the climate crisis, global warming, changes in atmospheric chemistry, changes in the world around us, it's restoration projects like Bolton Fell which are going to be absolutely critical to making our communities on a small scale in areas like this, but on a large scale, on a global scale, much more resilient to the changes that are coming.
It's really weird to think that people used to take this stuff and use it for themselves.
Yeah.
But it's also quite, obviously interesting to find out the historical part about
It's
it.
almost quite unique, the fact it's so close to us. 'Cause
Yeah.
not many people will have stuff like that
Yeah,
near
not
where
many
they
people
live.
have that experience to see what people in the past have done and what we can do to change that for the future.
Yeah.
Because as adults, I'm sure you wouldn't have had to worry about it so much when you were younger, but because it's now becoming so much more recognised and so much more thought about, people are putting it all on the younger generations who have to think, what can we actually do when we get older to help out with this crisis?
And like
over
they're
the world?
teaching more about it in schools than they would have done in the
Yeah,
past.
you look on the news and you see that, obviously they're struggling with climate change, but that can't be solved within the next 50 years. So in the next 50 years, we're going to have to try and figure out how we can also help protect the environment and how to obviously create more carbon stores or restore them, as we are with the peat bogs.
I loved it when I was up here. I have good memories. Good memories of people I work with. Well, mine, it wasn't always good. You got your wedding days, and old Peter was an old buggy, If you imagine a bogey coming up here in the morning, 7:30, clattering along, and I was sitting there, no top on it, mind. Poop, 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 black smoke everywhere. And if you say left the handle in, you know. But anyway, when you got them started, and everybody walked up Moss, just loading in these bogies, and away we went. 10 in a bogie, 30, 40 people at one time up the Moss. And old Willie Foster, he used to come with the old bottle in the sock. He get one warm drink a day, the first one. Gosh, his tea went cold. Didn't have flasks. Martin finished always, I was saying, Martin he says, I can't remember when I had dry feet. I enjoyed it then. It was hard work, but when you're young, it didn't matter. Kept fit. It was good. I knew it was going to close one day because I think they put 25 years on it. You didn't, 1969, nobody talked about climate change. Nobody talked about carbon being caught in peat. If you said that to somebody, then they said, you're not the full shilling. What are you on about? But you know now, that which is right, mind. This is right. This is a heritage. This is something, it should be kept.
Being someone from a rural background, I always acknowledge the economic and social role that bog as a productive bog for the horticultural industry had. A lot of people were employed there and a lot of people were very proud of what they were doing there. So whilst I recognise that and the loss of that, hopefully we can build something that is important to the local community and that they can cherish, but then can be used to expand other people's knowledge and relationship with the bog.
You've just asked a really big question about the connection between art and science and how that comes through in my poetry. It's about learning, listening to what the scientists are telling me and showing me, and giving equal time, if not more time, to listen to the bog, the way it lives and breathes and what lives here. Listen to myself as well and what kind of response I have. And then it's been really eye-opening to hear from people who used to work here. And for those people, it was a totally different relationship to the place. I can talk in a way about carbon or climate change or heritage or biodiversity or loss or expectation for things to get better or restoration techniques, but definitely not in a way that you'd find in a science manual or a newspaper article.
When a site like this has been milled, they drain it. So they lower that water table so it goes from its natural state of being, really close to the surface and permanently saturated to being dry, essentially. So a lot of the work that happens here is to re-wet the peat, to get it back to being waterlogged. So dip wells are the sort of points at which I go to, are essentially conduits, sort of wells going into the ground, and they act like a little window into that water table. So we have a logger that sits within them, and that measures how much water is above it every hour, throughout the year, throughout the seasons. One of the reasons for that, needing those long-term accurate data sets, is that restoration can take decades on these sites.
So basically, coring, it's a method of taking samples deep down into the peat, and also a way of measuring the depth of the peat on the rod, and it comes out in metre-long stages, and it will go down as far as the peat goes down until you hit the glacial clay or the glacial till that was originally there before the bog formed. I mean, roughly speaking, rule of thumb, every metre you go down in peat is about 1,000 years. So we were down 8.5 metres just now, which is roughly 8,500 years. And we've got, some places in the bog 10, 12 metres. So, that's just after the ice disappeared and things started forming in the bog. After 10,000 years of forming, 60 years to mill it out and destroy it, really. So it's quite a stark reminder of just what we can do as a species, and, it's right that we should start putting something back and trying to restore it and get it back to where it should be.
I call it interesting. One word. Interesting. How does that sound? You see, I've lived with it most of the time. We bought this place in 1950. Some cattle and sheep. Suckler cows. There's a patch of peat behind this wood. It's about 6 or 7 acres. That's all it is. The funny bit was, my father bought the place. He had to ask somebody to show him which bit was the moss when it was bulled with peat that started it up. When they approached him, wanted to dig peat, and he had to come up and ask somebody to show him which bit was it they were talking about. But you see, when I was getting an income out of it, I was never knocking it. And now, I think I've been done with it. Well, maybe not knocking the moss itself, but I'm surprised they haven't often done before now. But there's that bit in the middle, it's known as long pole planting, and I've been across there many a time. You just want to walk across them.
Maybe looking for sheep at times.
No, on a Sunday morning I used to maybe take off and walk away across. This is while it was work in progress, and it was always changing. Well, it's a wilderness now, I call it. It's taken thousands of years to build that up.